Now in this, if you remember, I had like stat leaders and improved win-loss record, but I also had things like being a leader on your team and having influence. And I think that comes down to building some of these elements here. So when it comes to character, the exercise that I've put out is writing down as many different characteristics as you can about what the person who achieves this goal would be like. I think what's best is I'll just name a bunch of things that, for the most part, everybody agrees are high quality characteristics. Things like honesty and integrity and accountability. Those are valuable. Almost every single one of your coaches will want some kind of honesty or accountability or integrity. You're not going to be wrong for having anything in that. Having some kind of confidence or sureness or poise is another one. We want people who are working on their character in a way that allows them to carry these qualities: confidence, sureness, poise. We also want people who are going to be good at creating positivity. They're positive, they're encouraging, they have good attitudes. We all want somebody like that. We want people who are good at listening, being coachable, being humble. Just about every single coach is going to want something like that. And then we want somebody who's going to be disciplined, hardworking, gritty, resilient, perseverant. There's so many different things that you could be. I'm not saying that these are the things that you should write down. I'm just saying that you're not going to be wrong for having anything in these categories. Just about every single person, every single coach that I would know would want their athletes to have at least these 5 things, and probably some other ones that are important to them. But when it comes to your character, you can either use these ones or you can choose some different ones that work for you. But I'm going to show you what I would do once I have some of my ideas, my themes, my words. I would then come up with a word that describes this, and probably it's going to be integrity. And for this one, I'm probably going to choose the word poise. And then in this one, I might even combine 2 things and say a positive attitude. And then for this one, I'm going to write down humility. And for this one, I'm going to write probably hardworking, effort here. Okay, so that's what I would do for each of those. And then in these, once I have these, what's great is I can add notes to these as well. So in the notes for each of these qualities, this is just a side quest, a little side exercise that's going to help you to be sure that you are building these things and you have a way of knowing when and how you build these things. So when have you been this recently? So if you can't come up with a few examples, let's say at least 3 examples of when you have done this recently, then you need to work on this. This is something where you should be able to look back every single week and you should be able to point to when you were able to exhibit this quality or this characteristic. Who is like this in your life? How do they show it? If you can write down a who and a how, that's going to be very helpful. It's going to give you a few strategies to build this a little bit more in your life. When is it challenging to be like this? Why? Sometimes it's not easy to have high character all the time. Sometimes it's a challenge. I would be interested in knowing what my pitfalls are going to be. Like, it might be hard to have poise when I'm doing something that makes me anxious. It might be hard to build these. So I need to know what are going to be the obstacles that stand in the way. And then the last one is, what are things I can do on a regular basis that would prove I am good at this? So you're going to come up with rituals, habits, ideas. You should come up with at least 5. You don't have to do it all 5 every week, but you definitely want to be able to mix these in. So when it comes to honesty and accountability and integrity, a really good idea is to set up a weekly meeting with your coach. If you want to be held accountable, you need to go in and you need to ask your coach, hey, coach, I imagine that there's things that I need to work on. What would be a great way for me to work on things? Or if you make a mistake, be the type of person who owns it right away. Like, yep, that was my mistake. I made that mistake. I'm going to do this to make it better. So these different prompts are really, really good prompts just to help you to evaluate each of these things. We can do that for every single one of these. And if you are doing that little side quest, that little extra work, it's going to help you to figure out how you develop those things for yourself. And remember, after we've come up with our 5 qualities in the top 3 squares, we're going to look at what are evidence that we have these qualities. So what would I see in a game of somebody who has confidence, is positive, is humble, is disciplined, and is accountable? What I might see is really good bench energy. Okay, maybe that's the thing for you, or maybe it's my teammates are thriving. Something to do with that. So the other one that it could be for you is if I have really, really high character in all of these things lend themselves to a coach being able to trust me as an athlete. If I have high integrity and I'm honest, I'm accountable, if I work hard, if I'm easy to coach, if I'm positive, and if I'm confident, then more playing time would be a good indicator of a coach's trust in me. So I want to see maybe my playing time go up, or more responsibilities. Maybe it's not in your control to get more playing time right now, or maybe you're maxing out, but maybe the coach is giving you more responsibilities, more leadership opportunities. Another great way to check this is somebody actually comes up and tells you, wow, you are one of these things. So feedback, that's positive. If people are noticing it enough that they decide they want to come up to you and say, you really work hard. Wow, you're very coachable. I love how positive you are. You seem really confident. I loved the ownership that you took out there. You get positive feedback, that's great. So these are just some examples, but there may be other examples that are better for you. And that's something that you can sit and talk with your coach. You can say to your coach, this is a great meeting, by the way. If you don't already do regular meetings with your coach, you should. It's a great example of good character, but it also is an opportunity for you to tell your coach, hey, I did this exercise. I have a bunch of things that I'm trying to work on. One of the areas that I'm trying to grow is in character, and I'm working on these aspects. If I were to grow in these aspects, how would you see that show up in practice or gameplay? Let your coach do the work, okay? Your job is to show up. Your coach can give you some really, really fantastic ideas about how your character would show up and how they would know that you're making a difference. The reason why this is such a hack is if your coach is aware that you are intentionally trying to improve in these areas, they're going to lean in. They're going to lean in. They're going to give you opportunities to build that. They're going to challenge you to be those things more. So they're going to catch you when some of those bad habits pop up. They're going to demand more of you, which is going to only make you a better player. You want to be the very best. Your character has to match what it would look like to be the very best player in your league. The very best player in the league probably has at least these 5 qualities. They may have others, but the very best player in your league does not have confidence issues, is not somebody who is frantic. The very best player in your league is not somebody who's toxic. The very best player in your league is not somebody who's impossible to coach. The very best player in your league doesn't have issues with work ethic. The very best player in your league does not have issues taking ownership. Do you see? It's pretty simple. Once we build this out, you're like, oh yeah, that's very obvious. If I do these things well, my character is also going to then seep back into these areas of performance. If I'm somebody who is honest and has high integrity and accountability, then I'm also somebody who is going to stick to my commitments. If I am disciplined and hardworking, well, then I'm also going to be somebody who gives good effort in my commitments. If I'm good at being coachable, I'm going to go and find my coach and get them to coach me more often. I want to prove that I'm coachable by seeking opportunities to be coached. So that's character. We're going to move on now to core values. Core values is almost the exact same exercise. You're going to write down as many different ideas as you can about what it would look like to have the kind of values that would make you the very best player in your league. So the difference between character and core values, just to reiterate it, is that character is who you are and what shows up, like your person and how your person shows up. But your core values are your priorities. It's the things that you really, really care about and the things that you want to make sure are high priorities in order for you to achieve this. If I want to be the very, very best player in my league, then there's going to be a commitment or a value of excellence. In some way, shape, or form, I want to be able to have excellence. Okay, it doesn't have to be the word excellence, but there should be something that is like competitiveness or results or success. Okay, I'm going to value outcomes in some way, shape, or form. Okay, outcomes are going to be something that I have to value, because if I'm doing all of this data work, the data work should be creating a huge list of evidence that proves that excellence is coming my way. If I do everything with excellence, I should expect excellence when it comes to the outputs. If everything going in is excellent, everything out is going to be excellent as well. So that's at least one of the values I'm going to have. Another value is I might value, if character is already a struggle for you, I might value something like building character, leadership, relationships, or trust. I want to prioritize the work that goes into revealing my character. I want to do the work that reveals my leadership, something that will prove that I'm building good relationships, so that I'm earning trust. What I like for this one, I'm going to add one other little key here. This is my metric, and I think it's a really good metric. It's worked very, very well for me, is be admirable. You can be good, but when it comes to leadership or trust or character, you want to be somebody that other people admire for the way that you carry yourself. That lends itself to building more relationships. Another way to say this is be irresistibly followable. If you want to be a great leader, you need to be the type of leader who is, you'd be stupid not to follow that person. And the type of person that gets followers is somebody who has a lot of influence, but somebody who is admirable. That's maybe another core value. I'm not saying, again, that you have to use these core values, but these are some good basic ones that if you were to focus on them, you're going to have success no matter what. So if we have excellence and we have leadership, these are kind of like paramount things, is how do we get there? It may be a part of my character that I'm like this, but it's also going to be a priority. I'm going to give effort, meet the standard of effort. Something about effort. This work is hard work. You are going to value the work. If you don't value the work, then every time you have to go to work, you are not going to want to do it. So you're going to have to make this a high value if you want to be able to achieve some of the other things. Another one that is, I really like this from John Wooden's Pyramid of Success. He talks about, it's sort of like focus, but he also talks about it in terms of alertness. This is having a vision and then looking for opportunities. This is a great core value because this makes you a lot more opportunistic. You have to have a really, really strong vision. So we are going to value creating a really, really strong vision and prioritize having a really strong vision. But we're also not just going to make a vision. We're going to be the types of people who look for opportunities to capitalize on chances to move towards our destination. So that's a good core value to have. And then another core value that you will never be wrong for having is going to be something that has to do with teamwork or collaboration. This is a little bit different than leadership. Unity, togetherness, inclusivity. You're going to be somebody who's going to be admirable. So yes, it's going to be about building leadership relationships and trust. And if you do that, it will definitely make it easier to do this. But you becoming the very best player in your league is going to happen on the shoulders of the people that you keep around you. So you are going to need to earn the teamwork, the collaboration, the unity, the togetherness of everybody else. You cannot win an award like this. You cannot become somebody like this without having teammates to compete against, without having teammates who push you, without having teammates who step up and live these values with you. So you're going to have to draw people to you. We say at our school very often that the hardest opponent you should have to play in a given week wears the same color as you. So you should value your teammates. You should value having unity around shared goals. You should value bringing people into the work that you're doing. This is not a solo effort. Everything that you do, go and find somebody who's going to do it with you, who's going to push you, who's going to help you to move towards things. So again, I'm just going to say these are my sort of baselines. They are something that's going to be valuable no matter what you do. But I also think that even if you don't have these as your core values, whatever your core values are, they're going to touch on these in some kind of way, shape, or form. And we had a side quest for character. We're going to have a side quest for this one as well. And it's going to literally be a very similar type of exercise. So I'm going to write down, how have I lived this value in the last month. Okay, so I'm going to have at least a few examples. You're going to have a who and how. Who lives this value well? How do they do it? A few of those as well. You're also going to have your how can I do this well each week? And you're going to write down a few different options for that. And I've forgotten the one, but I'm going to add it in just now, which is what are the obstacles that will make pursuing this value hard? It's good to know what is going to be tough and what you're going to have to pay attention to as you do the living of these values. So when it comes to excellence and competitiveness and results, what are the obstacles that might make this hard? Laziness. So you can identify the low threshold. I can never be lazy if I want to be excellent. The other thing is I can't be satisfied with enough. If I'm pursuing excellence and competitiveness, I got to bring competitiveness all the time. The other thing that's going to make it really, really hard is if I overdo it. Somebody who is constantly overdoing it in excellence isn't giving themselves enough rest time. They're not pursuing their recovery time with a high level of excellence and competitiveness. So that's just a good example for that one. But there's going to be one for every single one of these. I would do that side quest so that you can help equip yourself with what you need. And then these green ones are, again, going to be indicators of how we are living our values in the real world. So if I am pursuing excellence and leadership and effort and teamwork and focus and alertness, I want to see that my stats or gameplay is going up. That should be happening because I am focusing on these things. If I do these things make me better at doing everything. If I have a high level of focus and alertness for opportunities, I'm going to make the most of every chance I can to get better at all the things that I can get better at. If I give effort in everything, if I work hard, then I should see that effort pay dividends and it should show up some way. So stats or gameplay, it may be something as simple as high fives. If I'm living these values really, really well, and I'm the type of leader that people like, and I'm a good team person, and I help the team be good, and I give a lot of effort, then I should be getting a lot more dabs. Like people should be coming up and giving me some high fives for the work I'm doing. So I might track my high fives per week or my high fives per day, and I might have a certain number that I'm going for. The nice thing about going for high fives is you can give a high five or offer a high five just to stack those up a little bit more, and it's also a great way to build trust and community and leadership. And then the other one, I love the feedback one. So somebody is telling you that you are doing it well. So somebody tells you that you're doing it well or notices it or says that this is something you're about. If they can notice it without you telling them that these are your core values, it's a really good indicator. Okay, we're moving on to convictions, which is number 7 in this. You guys have been paying very good attention so far and working really hard on this. There's going to be some steps that we've kind of rushed through, and you're going to have to come back and maybe go through these yourself. But at this point in time, we are now through the harder work of all of these grids. So all of these have an actionable or something that you can do to help measure or get better. But these next two are more about creating a belief statement. So this is going to be almost like an affirmation or something that's going to help you to build some confidence or to establish what you believe about yourself to be able to reach a certain standard. And this is actually the standards and the rules. So this one will take a little bit of work just to knock out some of the different rules that you want for each category. But what I've written in here in terms of what you're going to be doing for this is you're going to go square by square, corresponding it to each of the squares here, and you're going to write a belief about your beliefs. So I'm just going to do this very quickly. I think that you shouldn't just take the ones that I've written down. These are going to be as generic as I can make them up. But a belief about stamina is I am the fittest
player on my team.
And arguably the fittest in my league. That should at least be true that I'm the fittest on my team. If I'm not the fittest on my team, then there's an issue here. I got to believe that I am that. And you can write these as I believe I am, or you can write these as I am statements. I think there's a lot more power in writing a statement as an I am statement. Okay, the next one, we're going to just go around the square here. This is one about your character. So I'll write it as an I believe this time. I believe that great character will lead to great results. If you really believe that, then you're going to lean into this. So I'm going to write a belief statement so that if I am going to be true about this, then I'm going to lean into this. So that's just something that I find is true about me. We're going to do the same thing for skill. This is a basic one. I believe that being brilliant at the basics will make me better. This is a belief about kind of your fundamentals, so maybe that's where your priority is. You can write a belief about literally anything. We're just going to rattle through them. A belief about your commitments. I believe in holding myself to a high standard and having consequences. I think that's a great accountability statement. We haven't done commitments yet, so you may want to revisit this after you've done your commitments, but I can tell you right now, because I know what's coming, that this would be a good statement for that. The next one is about SPAQ. I believe that speed kills. I prioritize playing and practicing at high tempo. It could literally be anything, but that's going to be the one that we're going to use for now. For your core values, I believe that living these values will be the reason I reach my goal. So if I live these values, I will live my goal. It will just help me to make sure that I'm prioritizing the living of these values. For strength, I believe that if I exceed the league best in strength, I will dominate my opponent. So this is about maybe looking at what the league that you're moving towards is going to be like. So if I can hit the standards for the university level, if I'm at the high school level, if I can hit the standards at the national team level, if I'm at the university level, the professional level, whatever. If I can hit these standards, then it's going to make me able to dominate my opponent. And then the last one is a conviction about your convictions. I believe that if I live these convictions well and I read them daily, it will help me execute my goal. Now, if that's going to be my statement, I'm going to take all of these belief statements, I'm going to write them on a piece of paper, I'm going to tape that to my mirror in the bathroom, I'm going to tape that to my locker, I'm going to read each of these things, which is going to remind me what it is that I believe about myself. Writing some of these things as an I believe statement just reminds us that the work that we put into building out these different things isn't just work. It's not just productivity, and it's not just progress, it's not just data, but it's something that I really, really believe in. And if you can write an I believe statement or an I am statement about these different things, it's going to help you to lean in. If this is something that you're ritualizing, reading every single day, it's going to remind you about what you said you're going to prioritize in each of these areas. That's why I think convictions is a really important and sometimes overlooked area. Now we're going to move to commitments. Commitments is similar. We're going to go grid by grid or square by square corresponding to each area. And I'm going to write a commitment about each of these areas. Now, it's very, very simple, especially if the area already has standards. But maybe a commitment is not just meeting the standard, but exceeding the standard. So if I believe that I'm the fittest player on my team, then I am committed to outperforming everyone else in the fitness test. Not only going to beat the standard or meet the standard, I'm going to make sure I beat everybody else. And my low threshold for that is on the way, I'm in the top 5. Okay, I may be only in the top 5 when it comes to these tests, but I can prove that I'm fitter in other ways. That could be just a little caveat so that you can work towards becoming the very fittest on your team. So remember, we're reflecting on our belief statements. We're adding them into our commitments. So if I believe this, then I'm committed to that. So when it comes to my character, I believe that great character will lead to great results. So I am committed to setting goals to grow my character each week. One goal per quality. That's a commitment you're going to make every week. Then you're going to start every single week making a goal about being accountable, confident, positive, humble, and disciplined. And you're just going to go in and you're going to say, okay, well, this is what it would look like to be accountable this week. This is what it would look like to be confident this week. And you're going to reach one goal per week. You could repeat those exact same goals every single week. It will definitely move you towards having higher character. This one I also think is I am committed to reading books or listening to podcasts on these topics. If you commit to that, that's a great way for you to learn and grow in these areas as well. When it comes to skill, remember, we believe that being brilliant at the basics will make us better. So I am committed to hitting a target in my drills every day. For me, this was getting 100 catches a day. I wanted to hit 100 catches a day so that I could ensure that I was at least making sure my hands were good. I also had a commitment in high school that I would carry a football around all day long. I did that for a few weeks during the year. And just having the football in my hands, you just become that much more familiar with the shape of the ball. So whatever this is for you, it could be hitting so many shots. It could be having a ball with you wherever you go. It could be a commitment to learning new drills. There's all kinds of different ways. But if I believe that being brilliant at the basics will make you better, then it's got to be a commitment about fundamentals. So then the next one is going to be a commitment about speed, agility, and quickness. I believe that speed kills. I prioritize playing and practicing at high tempo. So then my commitment, I am committed to running sprints at the end of practice if I believe I did not meet my standard of tempo. So you're going to give yourself a ranking, 1 out of 10. You have to be over a 7, let's say, every practice. You can confirm this with a teammate. You can ask them, how was my speed today? Was I doing things faster? Did it look sluggish? And if they say, yeah, I would give you like a 6 out of 10, then you got to do sprints. So that's going to be a rule that you're going to create, a commitment you're going to create around having this. Here's one about your core values. If you believe that living these values will be the reason you reach your goal, then I am committed to learning more about how to live these values well. One book each this year. That's a big time commitment. I think it's a great commitment. You can learn about being focused. You can learn about teamwork. You can learn about effort. You can learn about leadership. You can learn about excellence. There's a lot of great content out there. If I believe that exceeding the league best in strength will help me dominate my opponent, then I am committed to getting on a program and tracking my progress each month. Something that I need to do, and I need to have standards that I have to hit. And so when I'm tracking my progress, I'm not just tracking it for the sake of gathering data. I am tracking it with goals in mind. So I have goals to reach each month. When it comes to your convictions, your commitment about your convictions. So here's the standard. We talked about maybe putting this out on a sheet of paper. I am committed to reading my convictions every single day. And then on commitment about commitments, I am committed to holding myself to each of these commitments. If I fail to live up to any of them, the consequence is X. Okay, so whatever that consequence is going to be, have something you really, really don't want to do so that you can definitely make sure that if I'm not living up to a commitment, if I go through this on a regular basis and I'm like, man, I am not doing well committing to my fundamentals. I haven't lived up to my commitment for fundamentals, then this is going to be the recourse. And you're going to have to hold yourself to it. Remember, we said that we were going to maybe be honest or accountable or have a higher integrity. So if we're saying that that's what we want to be, then we have to have consequences when we don't live up to our standards. If you were to have these convictions and these commitments that are going to reinforce all of this other work that you did, if I do all of these commitments, if I make all of these convictions true, if I live with high character and I live out my values, it would be almost impossible for me to not do all of the other things that I am trying to do when it comes to my performance. But it goes the other way around. If I were to focus on just nailing all of these disciplines, and that was just my commitment, I was just going to make sure I did all of these disciplines really, really well, what would come out of that ritualizing of those things would be the same things. I would be the type of person who is honest and accountable and has high integrity because I have the discipline it takes to stick to my plan. I would have more confidence because I'd be growing. I would have more positivity. I'd be more encouraging because I'd be having more success. It would become a lot easier for me to become more encouraging. I would be more coachable because I'd see the value in having coaches work on me, and I would certainly become more disciplined. So by working on these things, you improve the inner, and by working on the inner, you improve the outer. And that's what I love about this version of the Harada. This is just an example. There's ways that you can make this so much more specific. And I think that going through this, even just one of these grids each day for a little more than a week is going to be a way that you can really lean into improving your odds at hitting this goal. Try to imagine this with me. Try to imagine this, and this is going to be the last thing I say. If you really did all of the things that you were committing to, measuring over here, if you really did all the things that you were committed to that were measuring over here, and in strength and in speed, agility, and quickness, if you literally just did the performance-based things, would you become better? I think the answer is so obvious. Of course you would. Of course you would. Doing nothing will keep you exactly the same. But if you did these things religiously with a level of consistency and commitment, you're going to see yourself improve just there. If you also put some work into thinking about the way that you think about reaching this goal, you are going to move yourself in the right direction. This is how you become a highly effective, highly self-motivated, a high excellence athlete. This is how you go about the work of reaching stretch goals like this one. Thank you so much for your attention with this. I hope that this tool has proved useful, that it's going to be something that allows you to move closer and closer to reaching your goal. Yes, it is absolutely a lot of work. I'm aware of that. This, even just sitting here and going through this and kind of coming up with ideas in my own head right now, I found myself struggling to come up with ideas, which is a good thing. You should want to endure the struggle, because I can tell you right now that if you're going to do all of the things that are necessary for you to reach your goal, this is the least amount of the work that you're going to have to do. This is what it looks like to be intentional and to put some work in with some intentionality. But if you truly did all this work and then you commit to actually following through on all of the work that you just did, it's going to make you better, but it's going to command a lot. It's going to ask a lot of you. So I am encouraged that you have stuck around, that you've listened to this, that you're leaning into this idea, that you want to try to make yourself as good as you possibly can be. I am also aware that this is not an easy thing to do. And I'm also aware that it's not a guarantee that you're going to reach it. It's going to take some courage. The risk of investing in yourself is that no matter what, you're going to get better, but you are not guaranteed the outcome that you're working towards. You can get close, but you're not always going to get there. And that's a great risk. It is hard, and it takes a lot of courage to lean into something that might scare you a little bit, to stretch yourself and try to reach something that might scare you a little bit. So I'm excited that you have the courage and the commitment to lean into something like this. And I hope that this leads to all the outcomes that you are dreaming it will. In the very least, I know that this will lead to progress and a lot more productivity in your process already. Thanks again, and take care.